We're here today on Country Pocket with Mouths of Babes. Their new album is World Brand New. And we've got Ty Greenstein and Ingrid Elizabeth here on
Hello.
the show. First song you just heard is Summertime. So you two are a married couple and singing love songs. So I feel like the first question I should ask is where it all started.
Ooh, great question. So essentially, Mouths of Babes kind of came to be a little bit of a love story itself in that our previous bands, Girly Man, Ty was in Girly Man, and I was in a band called Coyote Grace. Our two bands toured together back in 2011, I believe. And our bands kind of fell in love and had a great time touring together. And in the process, the two of us also fell in love. And it was a wonderful time. And then both of our bands kind of spontaneously combusted for various reasons. And so after that, we were both like, they broke up, but we stayed together. And so we were like, well, we want to keep doing music, so let's just try that. And if it sucks, we'll stop. And so here we are, about I don't know,
Many,
10
too
years
many years to
later.
count. Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it all began.
Well, nothing like bonding over the thing you love most.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We definitely speak the same language in that way.
Um, so you have a queer love story, but it's also a very rural love story, as you hear on Summertime. Tell me how you mix rural living and living as people who aren't always so accepted in rural areas.
Sure. Yeah. So I grew up in a small town in southeastern Ohio in a very rural area. And even though the culture feels very familiar to me, and I had a fairly easy time growing up there, I also didn't come out until after I had left my hometown. And so, it's something where I have a deep affection for rural community and where I grew up. And we now even live in a semi-rural area of Northern California that, feels very much like home to us. But there is this kind of reality that there are queer people everywhere, including in the smallest little, backwater towns all over America. And, they're finding a way to, live and love and thrive as best they can, and sometimes that means coming out and sometimes it means not coming out or something in between. But, for me, having this song come together, it's all the parts of myself and my truth happening at once. And some of that was able to happen in real time, and some of that was a more creative nonfiction. So that's in this song I actually wrote quite a long time ago, and then we decided to kind of re-record it on this album because it felt like a good part of this mix of this album's messages.
Yes, there are definitely queer people everywhere. I mean, there are three of them in this conversation right now. So, you're surrounded, listeners. You are surrounded.
That's right.
Um, Boys like her. That's just a brilliant line. It sort of captures how things are both so true to any old love story, but at the same time so unique. Tell me how you came up with that line.
Well, I have to give complete and full credit to a friend of mine, a writer and performer named Ivan Coyote. So Ivan and a few other writers actually did a compilation of stories, and they had a book called Boys Like Her. And so that came out, oh gosh, in the early 2000s, I think. And I remember reading that book and being like, wow, that is just the best phrase. That is the best, the coolest thing. And I really resonated with the stories of the people who are, that they were in the book. But it wasn't until years later that I was writing the song and that phrase came into my mind. I was like, yeah, exactly. Because I mean, for me personally, I am definitely, oriented towards masculine women and butches. And so I was like, yeah, that's exactly right. Like grown up tomboys are 100% my jam. So exhibit A. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Lucky
was
me.
it was just a perfect phrase to use. And then later, a couple years later, I actually shared that song with Ivan when we were having conversation, and he got a kick out of that for sure.
I'm glad. now to move from sort of the fun song to one that's just as loving but slightly more serious. Um, Tell me about putting yourself in the headspace of someone who's about to pass on and accept for the love.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, so that song kind of happened spontaneously. It's about my grandparents. They were married for almost 74 years, and they were just completely devoted to each other and like crazy about each other the entire time. Um, and I just remember my grandfather always used to say, like, he would just shake his head and he was like, just like astounded that it had all gone by so quickly. And I think he really saw his life as very precious, and his marriage was like, so important to him. And so I just feel like that song really came naturally out of my experience of just watching him in his later years. And at the end of his life, he suffered from dementia. And so he really declined, but he still had that intense love for her. And every time she walked into the room, he would just smile and just say, "There's my girl." He never forgot who she was. And that really moved me just to see how the love is what carries through.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of legacy are you guys looking to leave with your love?
Mm, what a great
That is a
question.
great question. I mean, definitely Ty's grandparents that song was inspired by. They kind of have been our hashtag goals. As far as they were married for 74 years, and they just, they always would say a good marriage is not 50-50. It's 100%, 100%. Like you're both 100% yourselves. You give 100%. Like it's, you really both fully show up to life and to the relationship. And for us, I think we really naturally have that and continue to do that. And just with our love, we just, we're just ourselves, like completely, even like the dorky side and the sensitive side and the fun side and all of those things. We just put it all out there, and hoping that everybody gets to find the right match for them, because I'm a big believer that it's out there.
All right, let's hear Except for the Love, and we're gonna be back with one of the trickiest conversation topics right
Oh,
after
good.
this.
Ooh.